What's going on, guys? Welcome to another episode of for Shenmue the Animation. This is episode 13, also the last episode. With me, as always, I have Bluespit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it pretty much goes exactly how I thought it was going to be last week. Well,
there were some things I was a little bit
yeah.
surprised by. I'll say that. So I'll just go ahead and say I made a prediction that they were going to heavily cut, or they were going to heavily condense at least the scene where Ryo meets up with Shenhua. I didn't expect them to completely remove it, or at least the scene where they're kind of like walking through. I think through Guilin. That was totally cut. Like they just cut to where they're in Bailu Village and like the end of Shenmue 2. So, but I guess it makes sense considering the way this episode is paced. I have to wonder if the reason why they showed us Shenhua like multiple times throughout this the anime was because they knew that they were going to cut out that scene where we kind of get more about who she is. Mm-hmm. So they decided to kind of throw in these scenes to kind of show a little bit of who she is. I guess that was kind of the way they decided, because they knew that scene wasn't going to be in there, so they had to do that, I guess. But now it kind of makes sense, which kind of sucks. I guess they kind of had to, though, considering the time they had. So I guess I'm not too surprised, but yeah, I'm still a little bit disappointed.
Yeah, I still wish that they could have made a couple more episodes just to give it some more time. But unfortunately, just due to it being like 13 episodes, there's no way they can cram that much in there. Considering that they were adapting 2 games in one core, that's another hurdle in itself.
Right.
But yeah, the first half of the episode was just basically just takes place on top of the Yellowhead headquarters, where they did add in a scene that was not in the game, which is of course Ryo fighting Londi up on the rooftop.
Yeah, we did see this in the preview for the promo for episode 13 that we saw that he was gonna fight Londi, and we also kind of saw it in the promotional artwork that he was gonna fight Londi again. So I guess we knew that was gonna happen. I kind of liked that they did that. That was an interesting addition. Because I felt like it, if he didn't at least kind of try to fight Londi again, it would. I feel like people who are just like anime onlys and they haven't played the game, they won't really get like why Londi is. I guess it's so important for Ryo to kind of try to beat Londi, or I guess just to show how much more powerful Londi is than Ryo. That even though Ryo's gotten this far in the story, he still is not really a match for Londi.
Yeah, and of course, what was it? Wong is also being held hostage by Dooney by basically just hanging him over the edge of the building, while Londi orders him to just put him down after Yandaju tells Londi the next location of where to place the mirrors is, of course, he tells him Bailu Village. And that's, of course, the next location that he's headed to, which is, of course, the main setting for Shenmue 3. But of course, the remainder of that segment follows up with Ryo fighting Dooney and using all the skills that he learned from all the other all the other masters that he ran into in Hong Kong, and then using those skills to his advantage to defeat Dooney on top of the rooftop.
Yeah. As expected, the fight didn't last too long. I mean, this is a boss fight in the game, but at least there was an actual fight, as opposed to some other scenes from the anime where there really is no fight. Like Ryo just wins. So I kind of liked at least that there was something there. But yeah, of course, then after this happens, they end up they regroup back at the hideout, and Yuandaju explains that the Phoenix mirror that Ryo has was made from what was it called? Like a certain stone that is found in Bailu Village, and it kind of makes sense now. I guess slight spoilers for Shenmue 3. In Shenmue 3, there are these guys that in the beginning of the game that are going after specifically stonemasons. So I guess it kind of makes sense as to why they're doing that, because, you know, stonemasons would have had something to do with, I guess, the creation of the mirrors.
Yeah, and of course, Yondeju also tells Rio about supposedly the reason why Londi killed Rio's father is because supposedly Rio's dad killed Londi's father. I think I can't remember. I forgot his name. It's
Suit was it shoot was it is it Sun Ming something like Sun Ming Zhou or something like that?
I think that was I
think so. Yeah.
Yeah, I can't remember. And Londi is, of course, not actually his real name. He's, he has his father's surname, but of course, it's one of the reasons why Londi took it upon himself to assassinate Rio's father is because he's under the impression that his father killed his father, but but of course they don't really know if that's really the full truth of what that whole thing is. So soon afterwards, Rio decides to travel to Guilin and pretty much says
not
his
before saying goodbye to everybody. I was going to say, like, saying goodbye to all the characters in Hong Kong.
Yeah, including not just Joy, but also Shui as well. Yeah, and then I think he also says goodbye to Ren, but we know Ren is obviously going to go with Rio by Shenmue 3 to Bailu Village, because he mostly sees sees an opportunity to get rich from whatever comes from from the two mirrors that one of the two mirrors that Rio has in his possession.
Yeah, and there is also a conversation with Rio and I think Shu-Ying about, like, now he's not really on a quest for revenge anymore. He's more so trying to find the truth about what really happened. And he also, like, reassures her that her brother most likely is, like, still alive somewhere.
Yeah, and then of course, so we cut back to Joy, who's of course at her mother's grave, and supposedly she's thinking about visiting her dad for the first time in years. And then we also see Wong deciding to become a salesman rather than just being like a pickpocket for the gang he used to work with. And then of course, like I said, as for Ren, we know he's going to end up following Rio over to where he's traveling at. So now we follow Rio, who's supposedly headed toward Bailu Village. But of course, I think he has to Guilin first, and that's the scene where he ends up meeting with Shenhua for the first time.
Yeah, I think this does happen similarly in the games. So Shenhua is trying to save like a lamb that's kind of being washed away in a river, and Rio goes in to save her. But of course, I think I don't know if it really happens this way. Like, after, of course, Rio manages to get out of the river with Shenhua, he passes out. And of course, in the anime, like, he wakes up in Bailu Village. So this is the scene that kind of surprised me, because I thought they would at least include a little bit of the conversations you have with Shenhua while you're kind of traveling to Bailu Village in Shenmue 2, but they completely cut out all of it. And I guess I can kind of understand why. There was only like 18 minutes, I think, at this point. They were like 18 minutes into the episode, so there was just no way they would have had the time to include all that. So they just pretty much had to cut all of it and cut right to Bailu Village. We do get a little bit about Shenhua, like, talking about the Shenmue tree, and like why she was, her namesake being Shenhua is because of the leaves on the Shenmue tree are called Shenhua. And then of course Rio pretty quickly discovers the pattern that I guess like for the mirrors that I think like it was something her father left, and that it matches up with the Phoenix mirror. And then he asked her like where her father is, and that's what of course ends up leading them to the cave that we saw in the beginning of the series, where they of course find the Phoenix and the Dragon mirrors, and which is pretty much where this ends. I don't know. I thought it was fine for what it was, but I was a little bit disappointed that there were something about some of the things that were cut out. And I also feel like the series, just has some pacing issues here and there. I felt like, it was okay for as an adaptation, but it could have been a lot better. As I guess just my overall opinion about it. I don't know how you felt about the whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, at first I thought it was going well when they were adapting the first Shenmue, but then Shenmue 2 kind of got all over the place with, like you said, with the pacing.
I was kind of afraid of that because Shenmue 2, I think, is a little bit longer than 1, and there's more stuff they really needed to go over.
Yeah, that was also my main concern. Like even before the show came out, like the producers said that that they confirmed at the time that this was going to be 13 episodes and they were adapting the first 2 games, and I was like, how are you going to do that? And
well, I will say they did it okay, like mostly well for the amount of time they had. I just wish, like I said, I don't know if I would say it should be a full season, but just a little bit longer than 13 episodes. I just feel like the time constraints kind of hurt them a little bit with the adaptation. But the things I did like, I liked the visuals. I think the character designs were on point. I think in some ways they actually do look better than their how they look in the original game. Of course, it's not hard because the game is pretty old. So, but the animation was really good too.
Yeah. Voice acting was pretty decent. Despite the fact that I don't think they really brought back everyone from the original game due to the fact that it's a pretty old game. But it's and also like in the English stuff they also changed the English cast for this one too compared to the original game. So
yeah, of course Corey Marshall isn't voicing Rio. It's Austin Tyndall.
Yeah. But yeah, like how would you rate this show, and would you really recommend it to people who haven't played it yet?
I would say it's a 7. I can't really give it a 6 because I think they did cover most of the important plot points, but I feel like a lot of the stuff that was cut was more the context that I think was kind of needed to further expand on some of the plot points, and just some character development that was cut, mostly having to do with Shenhua. But yeah, I would say for me it's a 7. Would I recommend it to people who haven't played the game? Like, I think they could watch it and understand what's happening for the most part. And they might be intrigued to play the game to maybe get more information about the story and the characters. Although ideally I would recommend playing the games first, but I don't think it would hurt to maybe watch the anime and then play the games. But what about you? Would you recommend it to people who haven't played the games?
I would say yes, probably, because they like I said, they did add some scenes that were not in the game. Like in the first episode, like we see Rio participating in a martial arts tournament at his school, which was never in the game in the first place, which is an interesting touch.
Oh yeah, I should mention some of the additions. I should mention too, some of the things they added I did kind of like. I liked that they at least tried to make Nozomi a little bit more involved in what was happening. Although they didn't really, they tried to do that, but of course it doesn't really have a huge effect on the plot or anything. But I kind of like that they tried to give her character something more to do, because in the game she doesn't really have anything to do. She's more so just I would say the love interest, kind of damsel in distress character for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but and also the the addition of the. I don't think it happened in the game, but the second Londi, or the second fight with Londi at the end. Kind of thought that was a interesting thing to put in there.
Yeah. I mean, I remembered, like, it was just in the game, it was just Londi just hanging up on that helicopter throughout the entire scene, and then he just
I think he just fought Dooney. He didn't really fight Londi. He just kind of observed the fight.
Yeah, I thought that was a decent addition to the anime, and I that's one of the things I did like about the anime, is that they added some stuff that was not in the original game and sort of developed give some amount of development to some of the minor characters. But I do agree. Like you said, it's probably a 7 for me for this show. Would I liked it to be a little bit longer? Yes, just to give certain scenes a little bit more time, like the Shenhua scene by the end. What was that? By the end of Guilin, that would have added something to it instead of just rushing it like for the last 5 minutes of the episode like that. But I don't know if there's going to be another season to this. It didn't really confirm it. All we get by the end of this episode is it just says the story goes on, and as we know, like, Shenmue 3 is already out, and supposedly there's rumors that Shenmue 4 is in production right now, but we just don't know the status for it. Maybe it's possible they might make another season to this. Now that Shenmue 3 is out, it's I would like for them to do an adaptation for Shenmue 3 if that's possible. Seeing
I think it would also be easier for them to do with Shenmue 3, considering it's there is definitely a lot of stuff that I wouldn't mind them cutting out, and if it was like also say like maybe like around 13 episodes or so, 12 to 13 episodes. Because it doesn't really feel like, I mean, I haven't beat it yet, but it doesn't feel like there's not quite as much really big plot points they need to worry about with that. I mean, there's a lot of the game is definitely spent in Bailu Village, kind of doing a lot of just kind of getting muddy, grinding, and all that kind of thing. That can all easily be cut, in my opinion, and I don't think the story would really suffer that much. But yeah, I mean, I'm kind of hoping they do eventually maybe get around to adapting Shenmue 3. But yeah, there's really no indication. Like, I kind of was wondering if there was going to be some kind of tease as another season at the end of this, but yeah, there's nothing like that. But I didn't think there would be. But I guess we'll just have to see what happens there. I don't really have too much else to say about the episode in particular. I mean, it was a mostly okay way to end things off. Like I said, I was a little bit disappointed about the things that were cut out, but I think the series overall was fine. Didn't really have any major complaints aside from, like I said, just it could have been handled a little bit better. I don't know if you have anything else to say about it.
It's a decent adaptation of the game. It's just, like I said before, I just really wish it could have been a little bit longer. Maybe 2 cores worth of the episodes, maybe just 1 core focusing on Shenmue 1 and the second one focusing on Shenmue 2. But they just went with the direction to let's just adapt the first 2 games into 1 core like that. It's just they did the best they could, but it really showed when they were doing the adaptation for Shenmue 2, and it was evident just based on how much they had to cut out, particularly that final scene with Ryo and Shenhua was also a major letdown for me.
Yeah, well, I guess that all being said, until next time, we will see you all later.